There's no better feeling for an entrepreneur than having people who care about the company you're building, because you feel like you're connected to these people and you're all working the same direction. And that energy is so, it's fantastic.
Hello and welcome to Reinventing the Future by HP Tech Ventures. I'm your host, Bonnie Day. I am so excited to speak today to Xavier Casanova, founder and CEO of Olakai AI. Xavier, thank you so much for joining us. I'm very excited about this conversation.
My pleasure. Likewise, Bonnie. Good to meet you.
So let's start with you giving us a little introduction. Who are you? Tell us about your business.
Sure. So my name is Xavier Casanova. I'm an entrepreneur here in Silicon Valley. I'm currently the CEO of a company in the AI space called Olakai AI. And originally, I'm from France. I grew up in Paris. I did my studies there, came to the US in 1998 for a degree here. And since then, I've been building companies here in Silicon Valley.
So tell us a little bit about Olakai.
Yeah, so Olakai is a startup here in Silicon Valley that is focused on the problem of measuring the ROI of AI for the enterprise. So, as you know, there's a lot of excitement around AI, a lot of excitement and investment. And one of the key questions that has not been answered yet, I think, is this worth the money we're investing? And I'm sure it is. But if we go even more granular, finding out for a company with different functions, different AI applications, which are the ones that actually are driving positive returns and which are the ones that either need to be adjusted or even stopped. And the opposite is also true. Some of the tools that exist today are amazing and they're also worth measuring. So that's what we do. We are a year and a half old. We've been building the product for the last few months here at the AI Fund.
I think the proper term, if you will, for what you are is a serial entrepreneur, correct? You have done a lot of startups. When I look at you and listen to you, I think this is not your first rodeo.
No, it is not my first rodeo. And I always, when I start a company, I always think about my current company as my last company. But you know how things go. Some of these companies are successful, others are not successful. And in the end, this is my sixth company. I started my first company, FireClick, when I was a Stanford student. I've done companies that were private, VC backed. Some of them were bootstrapped, also run a publicly traded company. But I have to tell you that, I never would call myself a serial entrepreneur. I would just call myself an entrepreneur. I'm not trying to do one after another. I'm just trying to, build things that give me joy.
Well, I would guess that it would have to give you joy, right? Because it's a lot of work to do a startup, and that's a lot of startups. Have you ever done anything else besides starting up companies? Or has this been your entire career?
The only time when I joined a company that I did not start with was a few years back, and I joined as the product leader. I liked, being the product leader. I want to do something a bit different. Ended up actually becoming the CEO of that company. So in the end, I think this just means that I am naturally perhaps attracted to be some sort of leader or carry the torch either as my companies or the companies that I join.
Yeah. Well, and the passion is the thing, right? If you didn't have that, then this story would be completely different. So I think that's the exciting thing about entrepreneurs is typically they are leading with a deep passion. So tell me about with Olakai, what was the big idea? What was the big vision that really made you say, I have to start this company?
Yeah, so initially, actually, like I was not in the measuring of AI space. It was like a year and a half ago when LLMs were really starting to become popular. The big concern back then was, who has access to this data? Where is my data going when I prompt ChatGPT? And for some of these companies that are healthcare companies or banks, i.e., companies with a lot of very sensitive information, there was a real issue about how do we manage this type of data? How can we use LLMs in a way that's secure? And so initially, our idea was to build a private LLM that could be deployed within a company's firewall or even locally on a person's computer and maintain privacy and security. We built a product around this concept. And then along the way, we discovered that there was a much bigger problem, which was the problem of measurement of productivity gains and measurement of the effectiveness of AI. And this realization came to us, I would say, about 8 months ago. And since then, we've been really investing in being a great product to solve that problem. And it's been very organic, like anything in AI. Everything's changing almost every day, and the needs are changing fast. And it was a natural evolution for us to actually be doing this now. And we're very happy about this change. You could say it's a pivot. I hope it's the last pivot that we do, but it's like the part of the typical journey of an entrepreneur.
I think that's a good point. Like the journey, I think for anything in life is never exactly what you plan. But I think with entrepreneurship, the pivoting is supercharged, right? It's high octane. You have to be ready to do it all the time. And then you put it in the middle of an industry like this, that, like you said, is changing daily. This is a lot of flexibility that just has to be baked in, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I view pivots as almost like a tax of building companies. I mean, they're kind of inevitable. I never started any of my companies thinking that I would need to pivot. And it just happens because of, like a market trend, or sometimes you lose some talent or you acquire some new talent, and you find that there's a better direction for your company. Pivoting has a cost. It has a cost on the team, on your customers. It's an act of courage, I think, to be able to tell your team, look, the work we've done so far, we're going to try to reuse some of that work, but 90% of it is going to be gone. And so I view this as something that you have to do. You have to do it, but I still don't like it.
So I want to talk about this idea that you are an insanely disruptive industry, right? That is the whole point of AI. It is a disruptive environment. How do you stand out in that? How do you disrupt in a disruptive industry?
So that's a good question. I've been thinking a lot about that one question, which is like with any company that we build, it's the long-term viability of your concept and your project. And I see a lot of companies in AI that solve a particular problem today that is a new problem, but that might go away next month because of newer technology, or because a bigger competitor is all of a sudden do your thing. I'm finding firm ground in this notion that with any new technology, you still need to measure outcomes, and you still need to put some metrics in place to kind of know what you're doing. And when it comes to AI and how AI gets used and all the disruption we know is happening in AI, you still need to measure the effectiveness of AI, simply because AI is very expensive today. There's a lot of billions floating around here, between Nvidia, Oracle, the energy companies, and OpenAI. And sooner or later, once we're past this initial excitement about AI and the build up, which is awesome, by the way, I love this, the questions are going to get asked. And I think this is a question that is not a today question. It's not a tomorrow or next year. It's an always question. And that is what gives me confidence that perhaps this will be the last pivot for Olakai, and that we'll be on our way to be a really successful company.
In terms of the entrepreneurial spirit, right? It is a certain breed of cat that wants to do this. It's a hard life. It's full of highs and lows. It's full of stress and sleepless nights. What do you think it is about you that led you to this life?
So first of all, if you look at my background, my parents held their job for 40 years at the same company. They never changed. My mom worked in a bank. My dad was a civil engineer in a large construction company in France. And so my background was not an entrepreneurial background, except that I had one uncle who, had a stationery shop in Paris, and kind of inspired me to consider other avenues for myself. But I have to be honest. When I came to California, after graduating in France. My idea was not to be an entrepreneur. My idea was to get a degree, be an engineer somewhere, or maybe take a management position at a big company in Europe or in France. And it is really the Stanford experience that inspired me to actually start building companies and join this ecosystem. And then when I built my first company, I sold it. Then my reaction was, let's build another one. And then I built another one, which by the way failed. And my reaction then was, I'm going to build another one and another one. And so it becomes like a career path in its own, and it's very difficult to rejoin like the mainstream and like all of a sudden say, okay, I'm done with this entrepreneurial stuff, I'm going to join a large company, perhaps because of the joy you get out of building things, and perhaps because also of the sense that you're working on important problems and that you can make a difference. But anyways, that's what drives me. I have to tell you that I think if I take 10 days in the life of Xavier, 9 days are very difficult and one day is good. So it's very challenging most of the time, but the joys are so intense and good that I think that's what keeps me going.
I think it's so interesting that your vision of your life was completely different until you went to Stanford. Like you were going to go back to Europe and you were probably going to do what your parents did and have a long-term 9 to 5 kind of job. That's super interesting that that one experience changed everything.
I think so too. I think it's one of these things that happen to you and you kind of don't know why they happen to you, but all of a sudden they completely change your trajectory. I mean, for me at Stanford, one thing that I will always remember was those Friday evening sessions at Terman Engineering. I don't know if the building still exists, but they would invite, entrepreneurs from Silicon Valley, and those guys would basically tell you the story of their business and be very encouraging. And I remember me being like this young student going to these classes and meeting with these people, and they were totally normal, not at all like in a different dimension, right? They're like super personable, relatable. And I think that inspired me also to say, I can be like them and I can build something here that is going to be exciting, and I'm going to join this ecosystem.
Let's talk a little bit about starting Olakai and all your other businesses. When you get going, are there moments that stand out to you where you're like, you think that it's not going to work or, you're starting to get worried about it, getting stressed about it. And then there's all of a sudden a moment where it's like the angels sing and, aha, it's going to work. I get it. I can see it. Talk about those moments where you think, I am going to be able to pull this off.
It's a great question. I think I'm going to give you a very personal answer about how I experience every one of the companies that I do. So generally speaking, I'm always worried about the long-term viability of what I'm building. I don't like to be in a position ever where I don't know if the business is going to be around next year. I start to feel uncomfortable and uneasy if I don't have at least a long window of time where I have some confidence. And so I need to have this like sort of security to really like operate normally. And then so I'm always asking the question, is this gonna work? Is this gonna work? Are people interested in our product? Can we sell it? But the reality of building a business is that I don't have the answers. And what I try to do as much as possible is decide that I'm not going to think about it and I'm going to be executing, and I'm going to also be a good leader and project confidence and explain to people why we need to go in a certain direction and so on. And so there's like two sides. There's the me when I'm home and I'm worried and I'm in the shower and I think about like the big picture. And then there's the side of me who shows up to work, has to be a good leader, inspire people, and hopefully, uh, make the business successful.
Along the same lines, can you give us examples of really big wins, moments where maybe, you had all this buildup of maybe this isn't going to work, and then all of a sudden it all comes together. Tell us about those moments when it just really does work and it's really exciting and it does pay off.
Yeah. So, I mean, the best example I can give you of that was a company that was called LiveClicker, a bootstrap company that I started with two other co founders Waltman and Justin Foster back in 2008. We started this business was a video commerce business. We're helping companies put their videos online for selling products, e-commerce companies mostly. And this was like at the very beginning of YouTube. We started this business, and Justin, Walt, and I were driving from San Francisco to Lake Tahoe. We're going to have a little retreat and think about the company, what we were going to do. And I don't know if you remember this time of, I think it was 2009, but you turn on the radio and you hear things like the NASDAQ went down 5.7%. And that was the third day of losses. And you're driving and you're like with your co founders and you're thinking, wow, I mean, how are we going to pull this? And we go to this weekend, we have a successful retreat. And then on the way back, we drive back and we have one of our first customers, eBags, who signs a huge contract, a big deal for us with us. And this was like completely unexpected. Thought it was going to take much longer. You know, it was a moment where on the way to Tahoe, we're thinking we're doomed, NASDAQ, whatever. And on the way back, it was like a completely different drive. Oh, they signed, we're going to do this and that. And we're going to expand. And all of a sudden, you feel like you're onto something.
It's great. Love it. So obviously you have to have things that keep you going during the times that, are full of worry and are full of doubt. So for you, because you've been doing this now 20, 25 years, is there like this one thing that you're still going after? Is there some brass ring out there that you haven't gotten? Or is it really the journey that keeps you going?
So I think the answer for me is I don't know. It's weird. I'm not a very materialistic person, so it's not about money necessarily. Although I need to make a living, I have a family. I want to be able to go on vacation. I want to be able to do things right. So the money is of course important, but that's not the primary. The pride is not like the thing. I don't have a huge ego, so I haven't really answered that question yet. And it's funny you ask this question, because if you raise money in Silicon Valley and you start to talk to investors, a question you get all the time from these investors is, okay, what's driving you? Do you want to get a house in the French Riviera? I mean, do you want to like in a jet, or do you do this because your dad was mean to you when you were like 5 years old and now you want to? And everybody will ask you this question, and I don't have a good answer. I think it's funny. I mean, I'm also getting to an age now where I'm more seasoned. I'm not 25 years old anymore, and I have more time to reflect on what I want to do. And of course, for me, the age of retiring is approaching. So perhaps more and more for me now is about legacy and being around people that are exciting and young and energetic, can teach me things. But there's not one thing that I'm really trying to get out of it. And I think that may be pretty unique, but that's really how I feel.
I think this point you make about being seasoned and having different needs and enjoyments, I think that's interesting. You pointed out that when you were at Stanford, meeting entrepreneurs, listening to them talk, understanding that they were normal people, connecting with them was very impactful on you. So do you try to pay that back now? Are you trying to also impact in that way with younger entrepreneurs?
I do, and it's funny because I mean I don't like to come across as I know everything. I'm gonna teach you, and so I'm trying to do it in a way that's very very easy on the entrepreneurs I work with. But yes, I actually am mentoring a few younger entrepreneurs that are 25, 30 years old, and it is for me a joy to do that, because I think I get to see the movie of my life again with different eyes. And also I think it's cool because with the people that I work with, I feel like it's a real exchange where I'm able to communicate things and help these entrepreneurs, and they're helping me as well. So it makes me young and more motivated, and I learn. So I'm smarter as a result, I believe, of that relationship. But yes, it's important to me, actually.
Let's talk a little bit now about team culture? Because you've had a lot of opportunity to build teams. What are the secrets to your success? Like, what's your secret sauce for your company and your culture?
So I have to be honest, I'm not sure I would recommend my style to anybody.
Okay,
I
so we'll
don't
start with
know.
honesty. We're going to start with honesty
I like to work with people who are really passionate about what they do, and I like to give people a lot of space to operate. I really do not want to be in every decision. I see myself as enabling others, and I see myself as being your champion. I think where it works is when you hire people that are comfortable with that culture. So if you're going to be working for Olakai, you have to be independent, and you have to be a hard worker, and you have to be creative and smart and kind and forgiving. And you should not expect me to tell you that you're not working hard enough or the quality of your work is not good. So you have to be really good. It's like, I want to give you as much space as possible. And so I think honestly, it's pure luck. In general, I mean, I personally believe that as a observer of humanity, people don't like to be told what to do. They like to have a bit of freedom and agency. That I think is also true. But when you look at super successful entrepreneurs and people like Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or people like that, I feel like they're the anti of what I describe. And so that's why I'm saying that I don't know that I have the right style, but it works for me. And I get to work on Monday and I'm happy to be around. I think if I can replicate that for the rest of my team, 99% of the battle is won. And the deals, the product features, and all of that, they happen organically and naturally
because they want to be there and they're having
because
fun.
they want to be there. That's right.
So, do you do anything in particular to motivate innovation, though, other than hands off and stay out of the way? Is there anything that you're doing to encourage play or risk taking or anything in particular?
So yes, the difficulty in a startup is that because it's small, because you don't have a lot of time, and there's like this emphasis on getting to a certain outcome quickly, either like winning a customer or securing a round of funding. Time is the enemy of what you describe. And so you want to somehow, I think, lead by example and say like, oh, this weekend, I was prototyping on Replit and I created this like little product. Hey, take a look at it. Tell me what you think. Or when someone does something like that internally at Olakai, then you have to be supportive. Even if you think that it's not like the best thing, you get to make the person feel like, wow, you tried something, and that is amazing. Like, nobody told you to build this, or nobody told you to build this initiative, or to do this initiative. That's amazing.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And you want to reward the initiative that people take because they actually just care about the company.
That's right. And there's no better feeling for an entrepreneur than having people who care about the company you're building.
Yep. It's the thrill of a team coming together and creating something. There's nothing like it.
Exactly.
So let's just take a moment and imagine, in terms of your leadership style, Xavier on day one of company number one and Xavier on day one of Olakai. Is it different or is it exactly the same? Have you evolved or are you just still doing the same exact leadership that you did?
I think when I started my career, I was very, very naive. And perhaps that's a good thing, because naive and not knowing, that removes a lot of inhibitors. You're kind of reckless. That's an advantage, I think. Right now, over time, I'm being more careful with my words. I'm seeing danger 6 months ahead of time. And so I'm more conservative with my hiring. Like, I'm less willing to take a risk on someone is when I interview. So I'm way more cautious and more wise, honestly, but less creative and less energetic. And I tend to believe that those two things actually, in the end, are like they average out, and I'm sort of the same. It's distributed differently, but funnily, the one thing that doesn't change is this crazy energy. I don't know how to describe it. It's not physical energy, it's excitement. So I don't know if I'm that different. Perhaps I'm less naive, but equally crazy. And Excited.
and equally thrilled about the results.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of unpredictable, let's talk about the future. This AI industry, we talked about it before. It's not your first rodeo. You have been at the center of another revolution. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between the setting of your first company and the setting now?
Yeah. So my first company was a company called FireClick that I started 1999. I was still a Stanford student, and we were in the middle of the dot-com revolution, dot-com boom. And of course, people will try to see the parallels between what's happening now with the AI boom and what happened with the dot com boom. And so when I started my first company, it was a web analytics company. It was about measuring what was happening on these websites, Amazon.com, Gap.com, all these types of websites, and seeing if the dot com experiment was actually viable and if people were making money and measuring things and measuring success. And I see this same thing happening with AI, as we discussed earlier. There's a ton of money invested, but sooner or later, people will start asking for receipts. And so, what I take away from what happened with the dot com boom that I think will happen with AI is that even if there's a crash, even if there's a pullback and things look very uncertain, in the end, they're so transformational that the journey in itself is going to be exciting. And we will be able to say, well, I took part in that revolution. I was in the industry when this AI revolution happened or the dot com and the internet revolution happened. I have to tell you that this is also a bit different because it's faster and also every sector of the economy is going to be affected by this revolution. And that's the part where I don't personally have a good frame of reference and remains an unknown, I think, for a lot of people.
So, in terms of your company, what's exciting for you in terms of what's coming up in the future? What do you see for it? What do you hope for it? How do you hope you can make the biggest change?
So for us, it's going to be the year of like launch for the company. So we've been building this technology for quite some time now. We're excited about working with customers of all sizes and all industries. This is one of the benefits of building a company that's in the measurement space, is that we get to work with energy companies or healthcare companies, banks and security companies, travel, all of those, and meet some amazing people. But I fundamentally think that everybody needs to measure AI if AI is to be an important part of their future. And I think for us, it's going to be the year of growth and extremely excited about it.
Great. Tell me a little bit about working with the AI fund and their partners. What does that do for you in terms of vision, in terms of getting traction? What are the what are the really big benefits of this partnership?
So this is the first time when I build a company as part of an incubator. So I'm here at the AI Fund incubating a company with other entrepreneurs also incubating other AI fund companies. And I have to tell you, many of my companies recently were work from home companies, and very candidly, not needing to commute to work, not having to deal with any of the office type of stuff. AI Fund has created an environment that I think for me is very compelling because I come to work here. I'm surrounded with other entrepreneurs building their business and trying things, succeeding and failing and sharing their story and giving advice to other entrepreneurs. And to be around them is a huge advantage, especially at a time when things are changing almost every day. So when I'll give you a super small example, but that there's like new models that are coming out every day. Google will have a new Gemini model, or OpenAI will have something new tomorrow, and so on. And so there's always someone trying the new thing. Sometimes it's me, sometimes it's someone else, but there's always someone trying and sharing their experience, and that is an accelerator for us. The way we build product on Olakai has changed dramatically in the last year, and even say from September to January, it's also has changed in what tools we use, the approach we take, how to go to market, the technologies, and of course, like the how to build this type of product, which is very challenging to build. We're building an AI product. So being here and having this environment and also being around Andrew and who's brilliant has been a huge plus to us. And I'm very, very excited about it and coming to work every day.
I have to say, it sounds to me like part of your success has been the fact that you continue to stay open, to not necessarily be competitive and to be more collaborative and to really be excited by all the other minds and other ideas that are around you all the time. Would you say that's sort of a secret to success for all entrepreneurs, to just be that open minded and willing to take in new information all the time?
I think it's the secret of the Bay Area. I think it's, like coming from another continent and growing up in an environment that was way more competitive and closed. It's very different. I remember coming to California, starting my first company. My first reflex back then was every conversation would be, we need to sign an NDA, or I cannot tell you what we do, or can I tell you how we do it? And over time, I've actually learned that you gain so much more by being generous with what you know, because other people will also share with you. And this trust is real currency here in the Valley. And so it is not something that is in my DNA, honestly, or in my culture, but it's something that I've learned in California, being open minded and generous with your time and energy and ideas. And because you get so much in return. So that's part of the magic as well.
Great. If you had the opportunity to send yourself a message on the very first day of your journey as an entrepreneur, what would it say?
I would say, you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you want to do this crazy entrepreneurial thing? Primarily because it is so hard to be a successful entrepreneur. Like I say, there's going to be 9 days that are going to be bad and one day that's going to be good. I'm very happy that I did it and it kind of worked out. And I have the energy now also because I've had some success, but like it's hard. And and success is very random. Like, if not for those crazy coincidences, and I wouldn't be here. Maybe I'd be on startup number 7 and no success and feeling terrible because I felt like I didn't build anything. And I have a successful path, but honestly, not because I'm smarter or more connected or more this or that, just because I was a tiny bit more lucky than others. And so you take me and you replay this, you go back in time and you replay, and the outcome could be completely different. And so that to me is like the thing that, I have kids and I don't know what to tell them. I don't know if I should tell them, look, you should be an entrepreneur or you should go work for Google, because it's so uncertain, like ups and downs all the time, hard on your family life, hard on you. But in the end, and this is the good part of it, I think that I was like super lucky to meet the people that I've met and work in the environments I've worked in, because of being an entrepreneur, because of like this risk that I took. I just don't think it'd be the same. Like I wouldn't know as much or have this outlook on life if I had taken this like corporate job and built a career. And so I'm kind of grateful that I was completely naive and ignorant.
I think there's always going to be forks in the road where people make decisions, but it always feels to me like, it's weighted one way or the other. And it feels like it was always weighted for you to be more of a risk taker. And it worked out. If you could give a piece of advice, or if you do give a piece of advice to the entrepreneurs that you meet, the early stage founders that are out there, what's sort of the nugget that you want to leave with all of them? Is like, this is the one thing to remember.
So if you are going to be in that game, I think that the most important thing is to always maximize your learning and always seek opportunities to meet new people, listen to them, even if they say things that don't make sense. Be in a position where you're always learning something from anybody, primarily because also the entrepreneurs are problem solvers and you need to be exposed to real life and talk to real people to understand their problems for you to find a problem worth solving. So you have to stay curious. You have to get out, meet with a maximum number of people, stay open-minded, be super resilient, and play the long game. Because you might be struggling with this company and the next one, and And then the third one is going to be amazing. Like it would give meaning to those failures in the context of what you're building. If you are going to choose this life, you need to be patient and ready, and things will work out in the end, hopefully.
Well, and I think it's a great point. It's not what's happening just today. It's what's happening in the entire story of your life. And to your point, you may learn more from that failure than you learn from the 3 successes.
That's right. And a lot of people will tell you these things, and you're like, yeah, yeah, they're just repeating something they heard, but it's really true. But you only know this, you only understand the failure after you have the success, because like failure, 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 still failure. You can't quite identify exactly what didn't work. But once you have success, you can establish comparisons. And so it is only when you live through that that you understand why these things are important.
All right, so we're going to end with some fun stuff, okay? I'm going to do some rapid questions where you just tell me your off the top of your head answer, okay? If you had a do-over and you had to start a career again, what would you have been really good at?
So I think I was really meant to work in a scientific field, in a lab as a PhD professor type of thing. That's what I really, I think, have missed in some ways. What I'm good at, to be honest with you, I don't know. I'm decent at a lot of things, but I'm not really good at one thing. I'm
You're
being very honest.
not a
And
specialist.
anybody who knows me knows this.
All right, what are you likely to laugh the hardest at? Like, what just cracks you up?
French humor for sure. And recently more and more American type of humor because I'm getting used to it. So The Office, a scene from The Office with Michael Scott and Pam or Jim.
Did you make New Year's resolutions?
No, I've done that for so many years, and I dropped my resolutions on day 8 or 9 that I'm like, I don't bother anymore.
All right, what's a sport you love?
Soccer, for sure. I'm a soccer guy. I grew up in Paris with PSG in the team from Paris, and they were bad. But when I was 9 years old, I played in a soccer league in France, in Paris, and people would take me for free. We would go with our club to PSG games. It was painful, years and years and years of nothing. And finally, they won the Champions League, and it's an amazing feeling. And so that would be my sport, soccer for sure.
And if you could be a professional athlete, would you be a soccer player?
I think I'd be a professional surfer because this is California, and I grew up in Paris with no ocean, no water, and one of my first memories of the Bay Area was going to Linda Mar. It's in Pacifica, and getting on a wetsuit, renting a surfboard, and hanging out by these California dudes fighting for waves. Such a good feeling.
Did you figure out that it's like 90% waiting?
Exactly. So that's the other thing that I just like find so crazy about surfing is that it's a little bit like entrepreneurial, right? It's like you have all this preparation, you have all this energy, you want to get in the water, you want to do amazing. It's like hours and hours and hours of nothing, and then 10 seconds of the wave, the turn, and all of a sudden, that you're going to talk about that for a week and longing to get back on the board.
Perfect analogy, right? You're passionate about it and you wait and it pays off.
Exactly.
All right. If we were to write the story of your life, you and I, what would the title be?
Would have to have the word California in it, and it would be a Parisian in California or something like that, because a lot of what I've lived through has been like between those two worlds of where I grew up and the culture and identity and who I am as a professional, and now a father and son here in California, in this beautiful state with amazing people. So it would have to be something like that about Paris and California.
Do you think that people know you, or do you think there are things about you that they'd be really surprised to know?
I think they know my personality. They may not know other things that I do. So, for example, I'll tell you something not a lot of people know, but when I was a Stanford student, again, I was living the California dream. I took flying lessons at West Valley, which happens to be on the other side of 101 on Embarcadero Road. And I'm a private pilot. And recently I got my commercial license and I fly very regularly. And that's how I spend my weekends. Not a lot of people know it because I don't talk much about my weekends, but it's something that, it gives me a lot of joy as well, especially again with these phenomenal California landscapes that you guys were born with and you don't even notice anymore.
That I would not have known, so thank you for sharing. Is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you want to add?
No, I'm super grateful to be on this podcast with you. Stanford and the NHP have a natural connection. Page Mill Road divides basically the Stanford campus with former HP campus. I feel like there's a little bit of a deja vu here. We're going full circle in this one.
Thank you so much, Xavier. What an awesome conversation. Thanks for just being here and everything that you shared with us today.
Thank you, Bonnie. Appreciate the time.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Reinventing the Future by HP Tech Ventures. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review wherever you listen to your podcasts.